So for nearly 5 years, a killer walks free, even though we've got a video showing his face and an audio recording of him saying 3 words, down the hill. 2 teenage girls were murdered in broad daylight. So the world sees his face, the world hears his voice, but no one knows his name until October of 2022. And even after a conviction, this case is now still open because the defense is arguing that the jury never heard a piece of evidence that basically could overturn this whole case. Today, we're going to break down the case of Richard Allen, where it stands now in the appeals situation, and what an appeal even means in a criminal justice case. This is True Crime and Justice, and I'm Crystal Danielle. Okay, so right now this case is in the appeal phase, and appeals are often misunderstood. This is not a new trial. This is not about retrying guilt or innocence. It's not introducing any new evidence. This is just a legal review. So after a conviction, the defense can request a higher court to conduct an appeal, a legal review, which is going to review all of the transcripts, the motions, the evidence, the rulings. They're going to just review everything of that trial to determine whether or not that trial was conducted lawfully and fairly. And if the court finds a significant legal error that could have affected the outcome, it can overturn the conviction or request an entirely new trial. Now, that doesn't happen often. I think it's less than like 5% of cases are reversed on direct appeal. But that's where this case stands now. And this is where things get complicated. It has now been nearly a decade since Libby and Abby were found murdered in Delphi, Indiana. Liberty German was 14 years old and Abigail Williams was 13 years old. They had been dropped off at the Monon High Bridge on February 13th in 2017 to go for a hike. They were supposed to be picked up later that afternoon. They never showed, and they were reported missing. It was the next day when their bodies were found near a creek adjacent to that bridge. Their throats were slit, and there was an unspent .40 caliber bullet lying between their bodies. Before they were killed, Libby did something amazing and brave. She began to record a video of a man that appeared to be following them, and you could hear him saying, down the hill. So for years, the bridge guy had no name. Then in 2022, something changed. A tip that had originally been reviewed and cleared in 2017 resurfaced. A tip documented that Richard Allen had reported being on the trail the day of the murders. And the volunteer receptionist, Kathy Shank, later testified that she located the overlooked tip. So it drew attention because 3 girls had reported seeing a man on the trail that day as well. And authorities searched Allen's home. And during that search, investigators found a gun in his possession that matched the .40 caliber bullet that was found at the scene. So for nearly 5 years, investigators had video of the suspect. But somehow, the man who would eventually be arrested spoke to the police back in 2017. In October 2022, Allen was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. And prosecutors later added 2 additional counts of murder while committing or attempting to commit kidnapping. And Allen pleaded not guilty. But then something happened in jail that prosecutors say changed everything. While incarcerated, a state trooper reviewed approximately 700 of Allen's phone calls. And the trooper testified that Libby's recording of the audio saying down the hill matched that of Allen's voice. They also captured a recorded call between Allen and his wife where Allen confessed to committing the murders, saying, I did it. I killed Libby, or I killed Abby and Libby. And the defense attempted to have this confession excluded, saying that he was not in the correct mental state. but the judge ruled that the confession would be admissible. So this is where it takes an unexpected turn. The defense also tried to argue that the murders were connected to a ritual sacrifice connected to Odinism. So the judge also ruled that that theory lacked a nexus, tying it to the murders or to third-party suspects, and the argument was barred from trial. So on November 11th of 2024, Richard Allen was found guilty on all 4 counts. And in December of 2024, he was sentenced to 130 years in prison. That was the maximum possible sentence. And then after sentencing, Allen's defense filed the appeal. And on December 17th of 2025, his attorneys submitted a 113-page appellant brief to the Indiana Court of Appeals outlining these 3 primary arguments. So this is what the appeals court is looking at right now. Number 1, first, they argue that the search of Allen's home was unconstitutional, meaning that the evidence obtained would have not been admissible. And 2, they argue that his prison confession should have been excluded because of his mental state. And 3, they argue that the defense was prevented from presenting a complete defense because the Odinism theory was excluded from the trial. So these arguments had already been raised before the trial and rejected by the judge, but Allen's appeal team had also previously filed a 1,200-page document expanding on the Odinism theory, using information from early investigative reports. And the defense argues that law enforcement focused too narrowly on Allen, despite the fact that he had not been on the investigators' radar for nearly 5 years. In the appellant brief, attorneys for Allen argue that prohibiting the jury from hearing their alternative theory prevented justice from being done. And so they are asking the court to reverse the convictions. And the Indiana Court of Appeals are now reviewing those arguments. The appeal is now pending, and the court will decide whether or not any legal errors occurred and whether those errors are significant enough to overturn the conviction. For now, Richard Allen is serving his 130-year sentence. This case took nearly 5 years to make an arrest and another 2 to reach a verdict. And now the appeals court will decide whether the verdict stands. So the real question now becomes, did the jury hear everything they should have heard? Or will the appellate court decide something important was left out? Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll continue to cover this case as it develops. If you're interested in true crime and justice and following on updates, subscribe now. Thanks for watching.